This is American Dumpster Fire.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to American Dumpster Fire. This is Loki.
This is Tyr.
And Odin.
And today we were going to talk about the First Amendment, but this kind of took priority. I forget why. There's some issues going on.
I don't know. We got annoyed.
And we decided to talk about healthcare today because there's a lot of issues. And I did get pissed off the other day about some of the misinformation and direct, outright lies going around the internet from people who know better, from people flip-flopping and saying they were for something and now they're not for it.
Are we talking about the Democratic candidates?
Yeah. And then a union was lying to its people about like Medicare for all. Oh, you're going to lose your hard-earned benefits if we do the Medicare for all. And it's like, actually, no, you'd be better because your union probably did a piss-poor job negotiating for you. So
well, even if they did a good job,
that I hear about it is there's no way to fund it, which is just bullshit.
well, I looked up some of that myself. So
well, okay. Well, there's two different things to bring up there. One, they might have done a good job negotiating for a union, and even a large union, like say auto workers or whatever. But the thing is, that number doesn't even begin to compare with the people that would qualify under Medicare plan.
yeah, I've got a strong union family, and I will tell you that I have members of my family paying upwards of $1,200 a month for insurance.
Damn. Okay, then you're not negotiating well. That's a bad deal.
And that's a large union, by the way. It's a large, well-known union. I'm not going to name names, but
yeah, someone's lying in their pocket because they are not doing their job right.
And I had union insurance before, and I wasn't paying that much, but I was paying about $450 a month.
Yeah, that's a little more normal.
For a family of three at the time, and I don't know. I feel like it's a little high, especially when we could do better.
Well, especially
we could do far better. And the bottom line is that even with the higher costs, we're not getting better care.
When you look at the percentage of your income that comes out of.
Sure, yeah.
You know.
Right.
Well, and for full disclosure here, I would personally benefit from the subject matter we are about to discuss, as would most, if not all of you.
I feel like everybody.
So
Well, everybody would, because I mean, right now you got a system where the insurance companies are lining their pockets, and you got these hospitals artificially raising things to do combat.
right.
I mean, it's like you got
So
too many parties involved.
The bottom line is that a for-profit medical system is never going to work in favor of the patient.
Unethical.
It's unethical. We're never looking at what's best for the people who are dying. We're looking at what's best for people who can afford to throw money at a problem.
And once again, I am also a medical professional. So, now this will almost surely not affect my job in any way, switching from our current broken system. In fact,
No, do you
that's
wanna
not
know
true.
why?
It'll probably get better.
Yeah, because people will suddenly be able to afford health care.
Right.
So they'll need more services.
Right. In
At
the
first.
in the end, it will balance out over time, actually. So it won't.
Yeah, the thing is that you'll have an influx for like maybe 10
Right.
years, but that
Yes.
preventative care
People
will
will
eventually
finally-
have huge savings.
People will finally be able to get that thing taken care of.
Oh, God,
you know,
yeah.
that they've been putting off forever, hoping they don't die first.
I can't even tell you how many people I know who, like, the last time they went to the doctor was years and years ago.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
Dude,
it's insane.
Poor
Or the
dental
dentist, the eye doctor.
Oh, and here's the problem.
Leads to
Forever.
heart disease.
Those people
Right.
who put all that stuff off and everything, and they wait till the last minute or whatever, they end up costing the system a fortune.
Right.
There's so much that we could have prevented. There's so much that we could have
Right.
stopped before it got too far, and it would have been nothing. It would have been a pill. It would have been a
Right.
lance this.
You have to
or
pay for a
stitch
visit,
that.
a small copay,
Right.
a cheap med,
Hell,
a
some
better
of these people, if
practice.
we would have caught it soon enough, they could have fixed it with diet and exercise.
Right.
Not some, I should say.
Mhm.
Probably most.
Well,
So
I mean, eventually age and something's going to kill us. I mean,
yes, we're not immortal.
We're not immortal just because, we eat bran.
But
mean-
well, my colon seems to think so. So, but yeah, I mean, the system is just broken. This is all about medical
It's about
pharmaceutical
profit.
companies making a profit. This is about insurance companies making a profit. This is not about me and you. The medical system doesn't benefit us.
No, I think that I read on, I don't remember where it was. It might have, I think it was on Bernie's site.
Oh yeah.
Talking about the insane amount of money that was spent lobbying to keep a for-profit healthcare system in place,
Right.
to eliminate any chance of Medicare for all, like those kinds. It's insane to me. It is completely insane
See,
the
and
amount of money that we're spending
Well, sure.
to prevent people from being able to get healthcare.
Oh, and
Medi-
just imagine the amount of money they're spending on the disinformation campaign, trying to stop Medicare for all. It's enormous.
I think that's how this whole thing came up. Was we were talking about something that might have a cure for cancer
Oh,
in the
yeah, yeah.
future.
I saw
And
a
it was
science
just a
article on
matter
YouTube.
of, as long as there's a for-profit healthcare system in place,
It'll never see the
it'll
light of
get
day.
buried. There is no way that a cure for cancer will be allowed to come out when the treatment of cancer makes them so much money.
Well, and let's talk about this for a minute, because some people are arguing that innovation will cease once there's no profit in
It's the
this.
opposite.
But the truth of the matter is that the innovator is rarely the beneficiary
Right.
of the fruit of their labor. They've come up with a great idea or what have you. They cured this or created a treatment for that. But it's actually the investors and the CEOs who make all the money.
Right. And as long as there's no financial benefit to burying a cure, maybe those will start to actually help people.
Right. Yeah, makes you wonder, huh?
Because this is not the first time I've seen, oh, look, we have a possible cure for cancer. There have been plenty. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, no, it was never across the board. This is the cure for all cancers. But it was,
Well, this
look,
one might be.
we
but
have an early detection for this kind of cancer. Or we see, and it's something that's killing how many people a year? And then you never hear
Well,
about it again.
and
It gets bought and buried so that nobody will ever be able to use it.
not to be a conspiracy theorist on this, but have you
It's
ever
true.
gone and looked up like one of those things? It's like, I wonder whatever happened to that.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you can't find it anywhere on the internet.
Disappeared.
I
Right.
have seen a few items like that. Not so much in medicine because I don't really look at that
Yeah, there-
often. But
Well, yeah, like Power. I saw something on Power once that it disappeared from me, like
I don't know.
special
But
engine.
sometimes that's because it legitimately didn't pan out. Like the last
Maybe.
The last AIDS medication they thought that was going to be a real fix and turned out to be a dud.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but
Right, but then usually
you-
you see that it doesn't pan out, and
Or-
then it turned out to be not what we thought it was.
you wouldn't think it just disappeared altogether from
right,
the
right.
world.
It wasn't
right.
erased from the internet
just
because
like
it
that-
just didn't pan out.
That article from 2012 is still there. There's just no follow-up. you know?
Right.
So, but yeah, tell us about some of the
All right. Well,
terrible things.
I went googling and the one
Ooh.
one website that looked pretty interesting, drugwatch.com. The article was admittedly 2 years old, but it had some interesting data, and it was nicely presented. So I ran with it, made some notes, and they were saying that 8% of Americans, I think it was 19 million people, went to Canada to buy drugs cheaper, which is illegal. And some people do through the internet, through the mail, which is a whole different type of illegal. And nobody really seems to do anything about it.
To be clear, we're talking about medication, not crack. Or
Yeah.
anything like that. We're talking
And there's a reason, and we'll get into that because you're going to see some of these prices. Let's see. Well, one of the problems was there was a 100% cost increase over a 6-year period. Just the last 6 years.
right.
Well, I guess that was 8 years ago from this article. Part of this is because drug companies have spent more on advertisement on a particular drug than they did on R&D.
Right. Which
And-
should concern you.
It went on to talk about how generics were blocked and they engage in patent abuse, which they didn't get a whole lot into, but I'm actually familiar with this issue. So they can actually change the molecular structure by 1 degree. And if the drug still performs correctly, all they have to do is list a side effect as a feature, not a bug. So now it treats acne. Even though that has nothing to do with what the drug is, they can reclassify it and extend a patent.
Right.
Well, when that fails, or they becomes too expensive, or just they don't wish to bother in that, they can engage in direct bribery, which they call pay for delay. So the people that would make generics, they try to put pressure on them and like, don't, or wait,
Right.
which the article claimed the FDA was utterly powerless to do anything about, which sounds about right because the FDA rarely has the ability, the funding, or the personnel to engage in actual tests. Instead, a lot of the time, they had the drug companies actually prepare all the research, all the tests, submit it to them, to which they supposedly review, and I'm pretty sure rubber stamp. I mean, because who's to say any of these findings are what they are or they're not cherry-picked?
Well, that's the thing, is that also the FDA, it's expensive to do that, to submit to them to get their like approval.
Sure.
You know, so like a smaller company can't necessarily
Right.
afford to push everything through the FDA because of that fee.
And it'll probably
it's-
take a whole lot longer, I bet.
Right, right. So it's specifically designed so that these, you know, corporations with money can push things through.
So what they were saying is that instead of dealing with the FDA, you know, you should write to your local congressman or whatever and see if you can get the FTC involved, because a lot of this falls under antitrust issues, because it's basically a monopoly. Okay, so the next one I had made a note of.
I just want to interject real quick.
Sure.
The cost to submit a drug application to the FDA, the fee is $2,421,495. Sorry, $2,421,495 per full application requiring clinical data. $1,210,748 per application not requiring clinical data. So that is insane.
It is. So basically any smaller company trying to like, hey, we have a generic option here,
I wonder
Right.
why it costs
better
that
have
much.
a fuck ton of money.
Probably because somebody lobbied to
Because
make it so.
because this system is set up to be this way.
Well, considering they're underfunded, undermanned, and utterly toothless,
Well, there's their
what the hell are
funding
they
right
doing with all
there.
this money then?
Right,
Their
where's the
whole
money going?
purpose is to make sure that these corporations are bringing in their money.
Well, and from what I understand, I we didn't look this up just now. I was watching a thing before that stated that there are no government testing facilities, that these are actually done by outside testing. So some of that might be going to actually pay somebody
Paying
else to do
third
this.
party.
Right, when it would actually be far more cost effective for us to have our own.
Okay. Well, so at the end result is the average American is supposedly paying $1,112 for a drug that in Canada would cost them $772. Okay. You know, different countries. We know Americans pay an inflated amount, and that doesn't seem like a big deal. It sucks, but we're used to it. What's the big deal? Well, the big deal is when you get into specific drugs you desperately need, life-saving drugs, like insulin. A 10 milliliter bottle costs $450 in the U.S. and $21 in Canada.
Yep, we're getting ripped off.
So
yeah,
that-
but they're specifically targeting the drugs that you need to survive.
Right.
Sure, yeah,
That's
yeah.
the
like,
difference.
Like
The-
the EpiPen.
And the problem is,
and that bottle would cost $3,000 a month in a month's usage. So when you multiply that out, you're what $126 for the Canada?
right, and that's the
Equivalent.
problem, is that they're specifically using this, again, on life-saving drugs, and you know not every fucking American can afford this.
right, yeah, no,
Which means they're literally causing deaths.
a good chunk of the people I know couldn't afford that drug and
I
anything
couldn't
else.
afford
Okay,
that.
now-
Not even close.
This is a little
They're
dated.
literally killing people.
It was a 2-year-old article. At least that's what it claimed. It could be older. I don't
So
know.
it-
The internet's
so
funny
the
that way.
price, discrepancy's probably worse.
But I just want to state that the math as I did it, hopefully it's all correct. But what they were listing is Abilify, okay, which was an antipsychotic that cost $31.51 a pill. That was the breakdown for the U.S. In Canada, it was $4.65, okay? Now, I looked up the current gold cost, which oddly enough was inflated higher than platinum. I don't know why, it just was. And when you do in milligrams per ounce, the highest dosage I saw in my results under Googling for Abilify was a 15 milligram pill. That was considered high amount. The equivalent in gold value at the time that I searched this up was 84 cents for a pill made of gold. So 15 milligrams of gold would be 84 cents.
Versus a pill that's $35.
Yeah.
So it's supposedly worth
35 times the amount of gold.
right.
It's just the most ludicrous. Oh.
Right.
Unless you're in Canada.
And mind you, I was watching a thing about how we're pretty close to having the technology to print pills on demand. So
Really?
so you'll be able to like just have like some kind of chemical like your ink cartridge, but you'll have chemical cartridges.
I don't know how they would do that with an organic compound, but
I don't know either. I was just watching this thing, and they seem to have some interesting ideas on how it's all going to work. So I find it hard to believe that, if we're even 10 years from that any of this should be that expensive,
Well, here's the thing, and this is a total sidebar, but I'm so looking forward to this 3D technology, all of this in the future. And they were talking about like, well, how is people like Nike going to make money when you can have custom shoes that are made exactly for your foot? You pay licensing fees. So basically, every pair of shoes you print, you'd have to pay. Basically, because they have already.
It's going to be like DLCs on your video game system. You go and you download the one they want.
'Cause
it
it's
scans
copyrighted.
you, and boom, you've got it.
So maybe they charge you $12,
Right.
and then you got to pay material costs for inserting the rods of plastic and rubber and whatever into your machine. So your unit cost comes out to what? Maybe $25 compared to
and it gets to
$200
be
shoe.
harder to justify charging insane amounts of money for some of these things now.
So the same thing will happen with pills. If someone's going to have a patent on it, maybe it's still $65, but that certainly beats $500 a bottle.
$3,000 a month, yeah. So.
All right. So yeah, basically the average global price compared to the U.S. is 56%. Some people pay less, some pay more, and other countries get subsidized as kind of like a test market.
So our closest market, the closest healthcare market, is 56% of what the United States pays. Is that what you're saying?
It varied country by country, but most of them averaged out to that, at least as first world
So
countries.
we are more expensive by
Than Germany, Japan.
By double.
by 44%.
Yeah.
So we mentioned that it's not legal for us to buy medications from other countries.
Right.
And then we mentioned that
Or to
it's
commit a crime by mail.
commit a crime by mail.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean what do you mean?
Cross state lines,
Yeah, you
cross
can't
country
just
lines.
order it and have it shipped to you. That's illegal.
That's
Oh.
that. Now you've committed 2 crimes.
Well, I think the
Right.
second one's a felony too.
That's what
Well, it's probably a federal crime because it's crossing state lines.
Right. So,
So the FBI is coming after you.
for being old.
right. They're going to get you for your arthritis.
But then also, did we mention that the whole, because this isn't something that I knew, but like for Medicare to negotiate lower,
Yeah, they've actually
Pricing
passed a law that made it illegal for
is
Medicare to
actually
use its
illegal.
power, its weight, its numbers to actually negotiate a lower price.
a lower drug price.
Because
Which
they
is
would be forced to lower their prices overall.
Absurd. Right. And I want you to take a second to think about that.
Now,
because
it's
the
lower than not
only-
having insurance, but it's still ridiculous.
The only purpose for that law to be in place, the only purpose for that to be illegal is to benefit these companies.
Well, it basically comes down to, okay, so you have insurance companies tend to work by group plans. So, like, even if you're in a small company, you can group with a lot of small companies. And, like, I think it's COSI or one of those groups. There's you can form, like, a conglomerate to buy,
Not every
buying power.
state has that.
okay? And so there's the more that's in your group, say, like, with a union, theoretically, you should negotiate lower. The problem is that if you had someone like Medicare, who takes care with a lot of disabled, really young, really old people, would have such buying power that it'd be laughable to be part of any insurance company. I mean, when you compare the two,
It is laughable to be part of any insurance company.
but my point is that, like,
But we have to.
if you could compare the buying power that Medicare could negotiate versus your job's insurance plan, it would be a joke. You'd be praying to be old. And that's why they don't let it, because
Because then we might actually get the drugs that we're paying for instead of
fair
these
price.
insanely inflated prices.
Right. They would
That's
be
not an
you would
argument.
you would realize how bad the discrepancy is.
they would be
That's
forced
the
to pay
bottom
fair
line.
prices.
That this is still the point, is that it's only there to benefit the drug companies.
So the last bit of data was the average drug takes 11 to 14 years in development, which they claim takes $1 to $2.6 billion to bring to market. Now, some of that's got to be marketing, and the article in it itself was quick to say, yeah, that a lot of people don't fully trust that amount, that might just be a number they claim to justify their gouging.
It's hyperinflated. But on top of that, a lot of these patents are funded by our tax dollars. They get grants to make a lot of this stuff. So they may be spending billions of our tax dollars to then make a fortune off our backs.
Yeah, and then charge us insane amounts of money to not die.
Right. For instance, the insulin we were speaking of earlier
Mm-hmm.
is not owned by any of the drug companies. It is owned
By the
well,
taxpayers.
technically by Toronto, I think, but yeah.
But the research was funded by
there's
taxpayers. Yes, is
tons-
that what
yeah,
you're saying?
Yeah, I think so. The guy who came up with it, though, gave up the patent himself because he wasn't a scumbag. But that's rare.
Mm-hmm.
You
Unlike
know.
Pharma Bro.
So yeah, who didn't develop
Wasn't that
anything?
an inhaler?
Well, it was the EpiPen.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So let's talk about Pharma Douche, who I think is in jail right now, or maybe he just got out or something like that.
I think they did eventually
Really?
lower it
But he
after all the bad press.
has no talent. I'm not being mean. It is not a talent to have money. He's a trust
Right,
fund
he
douchebag.
purchased it, right?
Yes, he's a trust fund douchebag. Who
Well, he saw
bought,
something low that was needed.
Right.
Yeah, he bought a patent that he knew people needed
To survive.
to survive, and jacked it up so high that those people could not survive.
Now I'm talking totally on my butt, but if I recall right, I think it was $22 and it went up to $450.
Something like that. It was insane, but nonetheless, this wasn't. It didn't like benefit development. This didn't.
Right, it didn't.
know-
Oh no, it's a
change the
long
pill.
established thing.
Right. This was just some guy being a dick so he could make a fortune.
Right, willing to see people die
Right.
so that he could make money.
Yeah. So he was just a piece of shit.
And it's not even that. Like, not just willing to see people die, willing to see people die and willing to see people struggle to fucking exist.
Right.
Like, they're just trying to fucking live, and you're dangling this over their head.
And in the end, he was a criminal. Like, not just me calling him a criminal. He's an actual criminal. He went to jail for something.
Yeah, I forgot.
So,
why.
Well, he's clearly okay with killing people, so...
well, because people like that are psychopaths, you know? And he isn't the
But
only
it's-
one. He's
yeah,
just the
it's
one
no
we know
different
about.
from the rest from the way the rest of our system is set
Right.
up. It's
He-
literally set up to make that okay.
Right. He's just the one we know about.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, it was
He was the
everything was
face.
legal about it, from what I recall.
Yeah.
That particular
That's
time.
Immoral as
America.
hell, and
People, that is America.
it was
That
so
is who
specific
we are.
we could
Right,
call it
right.
out and make a whole stink of it on Facebook. Unlike most of the stuff that goes under the radar.
Right.
Most of these
Most of these
crazy
people
expensive
are
things
silently
are
struggling.
some weird, rare diseases that not everyone's aware of, that people are suffering, and they have to make choices. I mean, this isn't like, like you have a discretionary fund and you're like, should I see a movie? Should I buy this comic
Some
book?
of these people are giving
no,
up eating.
they have to choose
Uh,
between, eating, rent, living,
And one of the
cutting
reasons
a pill in half for half the effectiveness and hoping they live.
One of
Right,
the reasons I'm not on
exactly.
Facebook anymore is because and this isn't just the only one, but the kind of people who say this stuff are frequently there. And it was, like bashing diabetics because you get yourself that way. Nobody's,
That's
like,
bullshit.
but that's not true. There's a ton of people, it's like, why should I pay for your insulin? Well, because that insulin also covers type 1 diabetics who were born that way.
Right, and that's
know?
the thing. Is yes, maybe there are some people who, lifestyle led them
Well,
to diabetes.
it's not just
but there's still plenty of people. First of all, those people still deserve to live.
Well, it's
Right.
not just
Second
that
of
though.
all-
But there are type 2 diabetics though that got that from. Guess what? There's a couple medications that can cause it. Not you don't just eat Twinkies all day and become a diabetic.
Or you
Right.
become injured and
Or
then
become
gain
injured,
weight.
right, yeah.
And then you can't exercise
Well,
because you can't move.
And also, gestational diabetes makes you more susceptible to it down the
Right.
road as well. So there's a number of
There's a
different
lot of
things.
judgment
So
without understanding.
There is a
Oh,
ton of
absolutely.
judgment, and seriously, those people can go fuck themselves because just fucking stop with your ableism. Be glad that you don't have those issues, and fucking.
Karma's a bitch though.
Well, that's the thing, because these are the kind of people who would say, like, if you weren't a liberal before 18, you have no heart. but if you're liberal after 18, you got no brain. These are 35-year-old
What?
douchebags that say shit like this that are only 5 to 10 years away from needing someone to be
and they
compassionate
can't-
for the thing they can't afford that they're
Right.
going to be dying
Those
from.
people can't think of anything on their own. Anyways, all they do is parrot Ben Shapiro and Rush Limbaugh and all that stuff. And let's look at karma for those two. Rush Limbaugh just got diagnosed with cancer after claiming that you can't get cancer from smoking. And
Well,
Ben-
he was smoking cigars. Should have been mouth cancer, but he was breathing in, apparently, which is what you're not supposed to do with cigars, but, you know.
and then Ben Shapiro's an angry Smurf.
I don't know.
So-
I'm not going to wish harm on him or anything.
I didn't
even
wish
though-
anything on him. Karma does its work on its own, man.
Yeah, I guess I'll just let that
Look,
be.
I listened to like 5 seconds of the shit that comes out of Rush Limbaugh's
I
mouth.
know,
That
I
guy's an
know.
asshole.
I know.
I don't wish negative things on anybody. That's not even true. I can't say that anymore.
Okay, no.
A few years ago, I could have said that. Post 2016, that's no longer the case. But I couldn't give a fuck less about this guy. The Medal of Freedom or whatever the fuck he got
What
was
a
a
joke.
joke.
Oh my
my
God.
It was
god.
a participation trophy.
Whatever. But like the bottom line is that that was a riot. The guy's a piece of shit. But like whatever. I don't.
Right.
What,
So
I
what's
don't
the
care.
solution, though? How do we fix this bullshit?
Get insurance companies the hell out of the medicine game.
Yes. First of
How
all,
about just shut down all insurance companies?
That's what I'm saying. Make them invalid. Medicare
But
for all.
and everybody's like, "Oh my god, all the jobs." Yeah, but you know what?
So what?
The fucking healthcare industry is going to boom
Yeah.
once everybody can afford care. There's gonna be jobs.
We tried to keep coal mines open when nobody wanted it, and now even the companies that ran the coal mines closed it because they think it's not profitable anymore.
There's a
There are no jobs.
one state to protect, because Trump made it sound like it was a big deal or whatever. So to protect Trump, they passed a law that said that they couldn't shut down the coal mines without the state's permission.
Is that the same one that polluted that river and ended up costing them
Oh.
millions? Or
Yeah, I
whatever?
think I remember hearing about
Yeah,
that.
isn't that ridiculous?
Yeah, it is.
Just admit you're
ridiculous.
fucking wrong.
Right.
My point being is that, look, I do not want to be outsourced by robots or whatever, but the future comes, jobs change, and unfortunately, what you do might
But
better
just
be
because,
suited as an accountant at
just-
another company or
just because
something.
jobs
I don't know.
change doesn't mean they disappear.
This one
If
should.
Medicare for all becomes a thing, the healthcare industry will boom.
Yeah,
There is no doubt in my mind that maybe your health insurance job will go away, but administration and all sorts of different.
I don't know if we're going to need that
You'll simply
many. There's a
move-
lot of redundancies.
You'll simply move. Look, your soul will
You're
feel
gonna
better.
mo-
Your soul will
for
feel better
starters.
because you'll be moving from a corrupt health insurance company to actually helping people.
Working
Okay?
within a hospital.
Because Medicare for All is a single-payer healthcare plan in which the government would be that single payer. Medicare for All would greatly expand and overhaul our existing Medicare system. So you now under Bernie Sanders' plan, there are a few versions of this bill, or a few ideas of
Do
it.
you want me to go through his key points?
Sure, but I wanted to point out that under the Sanders plan, there is no participation from insurance companies. That doesn't exist.
It's just
Yeah,
the
I don't
way
think
you
it
shut them
can.
down.
Any hybrid system that's supposed to be transitory in 20
No,
to
no,
50
no.
years,
That's where
that will
Obamacare
never
went
happen.
wrong.
Yeah,
It'll
I
never
agree.
happen.
That is
I was
where
so
Obamacare
disappointed
went
when I
wrong.
found out he was keeping the
He
insurance
was
companies because they're a
because
big
he
part
was
of the
trying.
problem.
That was his only way to get Republicans.
It was
to
a
go along
negotiation
with it.
tactic. It was
Right.
You
trying
had
to
to give
ease
them a
us
little
into
bit of
the water.
scam
Right.
to latch onto.
Look,
And
it's a
that's
little
all they
cold.
needed. That was all they needed to jack prices up.
Dip
Right.
a toe in, your body will adjust. No, you got to go
Right.
all the way into your nuts
And that
and
was the
deal
point.
with the shrinkage.
Is that Obamacare was supposed to be step one, except the Republicans did everything that they could to fuck it up.
Yeah, we're good scamming you on this part.
But here's the problem with the solution that would actually work. I don't know if it'll ever get passed. I don't see how it would.
Well, let's discuss
It
this.
needs to. Do you want
So
me to
go
over
ahead,
these?
go ahead, hit the points.
Okay, so for Bernie, his key points are that he would create a Medicare for all, single-payer national health insurance program that will provide everyone in America with a comprehensive health care coverage free at the point of service. No networks, no premiums, no deductibles, no copays, no surprise bills. Medicare coverage will be expanded to improved to include dental, hearing, vision, home and community-based long-term care, inpatient and outpatient services, mental health and substance abuse treatments, reproductive, maternity care, prescription drugs, and more.
Wow.
He's going to stop the pharmaceutical industry from ripping off the American people by making sure that no one in America pays over $200 a year for the medication they need, by capping what Americans pay for prescription drugs under Medicare for All. Those are insanely huge points. Those are life-changing things.
That's awesome.
So, but let's be clear. The program would not be immediately implemented, nor is it guaranteed should Sanders or another supporter of this bill be elected to the presidency. The program would be gradually implemented over time, and the program would still require the help of Congress and Senate to be put into motion.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, we have to elect a highly democratic Congress for that to be even possible.
now I think you said that unlike current insurance systems, Medicare for All would include dental, vision, mental health,
Right.
and things
Those
traditional
are
insurance.
huge.
Substance abuse,
Right.
Right.
which especially locally here it would be great.
Right.
So the big problem people have with it, though, is how to pay for it, right?
Right.
I
So-
mean, well, how do all the other countries in
Well-
the first world
there's
have managed to
obviously
pay
Let's
for
discuss
it?
it.
for it.
I looked up some things, right? So we currently spend about $3.2 trillion on healthcare, which is about 65% of what the program costs. So
Okay.
we're partway there. So we spend over $2 trillion on publicly financed healthcare programs such as Medicare, Medicaid, and other programs. Oh, it moved on me. The United States spends about $10,000 per year per person on healthcare. This is more as a percentage of GDP than any other country in the world. So we have the highest healthcare costs in the entire world, even if you adjust for.
So what would the next country be?
I don't know. I didn't
I
look.
think it's Switzerland. Well, I don't know. That
Because
was
I did see
Which is funny
Sweden was
because
a
the-
third of what we're doing.
well. The difference is that if you're getting better health care, it's not necessarily an issue. The problem is we're not.
So
Well, I mean, in certain ways, we have certain
No.
specialties and
The
stuff.
problem is that we were lower. We were towards the worst end of the scale.
Oh no, I'm
oh
saying
yeah,
most
the
of
quality of
the-
our healthcare sucks.
I'm saying
Oh,
our
yeah.
average outcome for average disorders, I'd be willing to bet we're probably lower than average. But there are a few things that we are specialties of that people come flying in just for those things.
There might be a couple of things, but
You know,
across-
cancer, heart disease,
No.
a few. There's a handful of things.
There's very few things we're actually
Very
really
few.
good at. But so if we do nothing, we are projected to spend about $49 trillion over the next 10 years on our current system. Medicare for All, in fact, is the most cost-effective, popular option right now.
Oh, sure.
Currently, the administrative cost of Medicare is 1/6 that of private insurers. Cascade that across the system, it will be a metric shit ton less. It's a huge savings, about $500 billion per year in savings. In fact,
Well, probably more than they're listing because Medicare currently can't negotiate.
right.
well, that's just the administrative costs.
Right.
I did no.
Oh, okay. I see what
I'm
you're
not
saying.
even talking about all that. Just the administrative costs alone, $500 billion in savings, and over $100 billion extra in savings if we could start negotiating drug prices.
Well, think about that. Okay, you call your insurance company, you got an issue with a claim or whatever, and you got to figure out what's going on with this bill. You're talking to someone on the phone. That person's got to, call accounts receivable or whatever the hell. I mean, there's a whole hierarchy in that company, and there are many companies. There's a lot of redundant
Sure.
employees you wouldn't need.
Right, yeah. So and then on top of that, by making, say, preventative health systemic, costs can be even further reduced. What little cost is left can be paid by making unscrupulous businesses and billionaires pay their fair share of taxes, and trimming the military budget, and even a Wall Street tax. So there's
Okay, so you hate capitalism, you hate the military, you don't support our troops. I can already hear all
Or-
the
Didn't we say it was a tiny percentage of the military budget?
yeah. I think we need like less than 6%.
Okay,
of
the
it.
last time I looked, I think we're 55% of our budget is military or something like that.
It's enormous.
ridiculous.
They
Right.
keep underplaying
So
it,
it
but
would
it's
be
enormous.
this tiny little percentage of the largest chunk of our budget,
We're going to Mars.
which we don't need because
So
we're already
with
like the
0.4%.
3 largest militaries on the planet.
When they try to they try to keep saying that the military budget isn't as big as it looks, but really what you're looking at is that they omit the discretionary budgets and stuff like that. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that they keep leaving out. The truth is, it's about 55% of
The
our total
workfare
spendings per year.
program that builds all these tanks.
Right,
and
but yeah, they forget about all these other things that actually we're actually talking about. You know, like maybe we can stop buying tons of tanks and planes that they don't even want,
Stop lining the pockets of Halliburton,
Right.
and maybe we could afford to not let our citizens
and
die.
then start actually taking care of your troops by giving them Medicare for all.
Fuck yeah.
Because I don't know. I mean, I know some people like their VA or what have you, but I also know a lot of people who don't.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we just take care of them at whichever hospital they
Well,
want.
here's the thing: is that even with the VA, there's issues there, and there's also still tons of veterans on the street not getting the care that they need.
Yes. Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
well, I don't even know if they've decided a computer program that they're all going to use.
Well,
Seriously. I mean, they still have all this stuff on paper they were supposed to transcribe, and I don't even
There's a
know if
bunch
they've
of
even
the
things
bottom
done
line is
10%
we're not
of
doing
that.
enough. We're not doing enough by far, and for, I mean, even just the mental health care to be available to every veteran who's coming out of the service is huge.
so what's the downside of the whole thing? Is what most people are going to ask.
Well, there's going to be a 10-year period where people are suddenly going to get care who needed it for years, and there's going to be a huge drain at first.
Well, and we
at
can be
first.
prepared for some of that. Bernie also talks about some tuition-free options for college, and maybe we can start pumping out more nurses and doctors as we need them.
Yeah,
Because we are at a gross deficit on those things.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the real downside isn't in the healthcare because we'd be doing the right thing. More people would be getting more help that they need.
And would eventually
real
cost
downside
less.
is that the bill is unlikely to pass with the lineup of criminals that hold seats in our current government. Realistically, we need to replace the disappointments we have in office now with more progressive candidates. So we need more people who back this bill to get in office. I think Bernie's the right guy, but we need to go ahead and start flushing the toilet and get rid of the shit we have.
Mm-hmm.
And
I don't know if anything's ever going to happen so long as Mitch McConnell continues to serve.
Mitch McConnell's got to go. He's got a good candidate running against him this
Yeah.
year.
Fingers crossed.
She's a Marine. She's got a good chance. People are hopeful, and he's got to go. He's got
I've
the
never seen
lowest
someone
approval
wield
rating.
the power that he has.
So-
It's insane.
Oh no, yeah, he's
It's all
like,
gerrymandering.
well, that's the thing. Like people complain about Trump, but truthfully, he's a god king. Mitch McConnell's Trump takes all the heat, and Mitch McConnell gets away with being the most corrupt son of a bitch in the world, in the entire world,
country?
maybe the universe. You know, he's
He's-
Darth McConnell. Like-
he is.
Right. Yeah.
He's blocking so much stuff. He's blatantly corrupt. He doesn't even attempt to hide it.
He
I
looks
mean,
exactly like Palpatine too.
He kind of does. All he needs
Those-
is the cloak.
Yeah,
I've never.
He's
like the
taking
evil
bribes.
is rotting him.
I mean, how many bribes must that man be taking?
Oh, it's
constantly.
insane. Yeah, I mean, he
He's
came into
completely
office with like
corrupt.
$2 million,
He's
now
a
got 26.
domestic terrorist. The man's got to go.
So it's time to end the bullshit. So, you have anything else?
No. No. I mean, just basically, it all boiled down to the fact that the U.S. I mean, here we're spending more money and getting worse care than
Right.
all these
It would
other
actually-
countries.
It would actually be cheaper for us to do the right thing,
It would.
but we keep letting
Inefficiencies.
billionaires convince us that that's
waste
not true.
too. There's a lot of waste in our system.
Oh, tons of it. Yeah.
I was just going to say Happy Valentine's Day and wrap it up.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll let you get back to your tweetie.
Make sure it's V-Day and not VD Day.
So don't forget to follow us on Twitter at @fire_American. We are on YouTube, Anchor FM, and then Anchor has us on a bunch of places like Spotify and stuff like that. So check us out there. Comment. Tell your friend about our show. We'll see you next week.